So let's dive back into the Alexa Bliss, Lilly, and Shayna Baszler situation on Raw. This Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler storyline has the main event spot on this week's Raw. It's understandable that the supernatural storylines are not everyone's cup of tea. You're never going to please everyone, but if you went online after this segment ended, the reaction from fans was basically 100% negative. Everyone was trashing the segment, big outlets calling it the worst segment of all time, asking when they were going to give up with the doll stuff already. It was really impossible to find one positive comment about Raw's ending this week. If you're a wrestling fan that's just interested in wrestling and nothing else, then yeah, of course you're going to dislike this Raw ending because it didn't have anything to do with pro wrestling. It was more of a cinematic storyline sort of scene. But what everyone needs to understand is that WWE is not strictly in the pro wrestling business. They're in the entertainment business. World Wrestling Entertainment. So of course you're going to get dramatic, over-the-top storylines because that's part of the entertainment part. Everyone always asks for something different, especially from Raw, and that's what this was. It was also finally some progress for Alexa Bliss and Lilly, who, like we've been talking about, has just been sitting on a swing set for 2 months. So fans were complaining that Alexa Bliss wasn't doing much of anything on Raw. They finally do something with her, and then the fans trash it. So just another case of not being able to please everyone. Has the Lilly storyline been goofy and questionable at times? Of course. The attacks with Reginald, him being nowhere near the fire but selling it as if he was hit and couldn't see, did make things feel a bit corny. This whole pyro scaring people off stage act is a bit weird for sure, because like we always talk about, WWE superstars have pyro all the time that comes out from the stage. But when it comes to moments like this with Alexa Bliss, superstars like Reginald and Shayna act like they've never seen pyro and fire come out of the stage before. But let's get into this segment and break down the whole main event moment. Alexa does her playground introduction, but quickly gets cut off by Shayna Baszler. They exchange a few words, and then the main point of the segment was for Shayna to apologize to Lilly. Alexa Bliss is willing to squash everything, but only if Shayna says those 2 words of "I'm sorry" to Lilly. Of course, that's not happening. Shayna ends up snatching Lilly out of Alexa's hands, which ends up making Alexa enter this enraged state, tackling Shayna outside of the ring. Shayna gets back in the ring and stomps on the Lilly doll. The lights start flickering and everything starts to turn crazy. Shayna quickly turns from being tough to fleeing the scene as fast as she could. The lights start flickering and objects start falling over and falling down from everywhere. Shayna gets spooked and starts to panic in the backstage area. One of those small broken logic moments here, and something you probably ask yourself in every single horror movie, is why didn't Shayna escape the building? Barricading yourself inside a haunted building with a haunted doll pursuing you probably isn't the smartest idea in situations like this. But that's what Shayna did. She trapped herself in a room, thinking she was safe, but the lights start flickering and she sees Lilly sitting behind her in the mirror. Shayna breaks the mirror, but Lilly still remains in the mirror, and that's how we go off air. So that ending made fans irate. That's when they're discussing how it was dumb, it was silly, it was goofy. Part of the issue with this segment was probably just high expectations from the fans. The second it was known that this segment was closing Raw, maybe fans really got their expectations and hopes up for something huge. Maybe they were expecting an appearance from The Fiend or the full Lilly reveal by Alexa Bliss in her new alter ego, but that didn't happen. Instead, we got Shayna running into a room and Lilly being inside. So when you look at it like that, then maybe you can see the disappointment. But calling it the worst segment ever is a bit of an overreaction by everyone. Bobby Lashley's sisters and Bayley's This Is Your Life was much more painful to watch than this. But what depends if this closing moment of Raw was a waste or not will be the follow-up. How does WWE handle the follow-up to this moment? If it is a great follow-up, that's going to make this closing moment of Raw appear better than it was. If it's a poor follow-up, then yes, it's going to make this closing moment of Raw worse than what it appeared to be at first. So what are we dealing with right now in terms to follow-up? Well, Shayna is locked in a room with Lilly and no way out. That was the last thing we saw. WWE is very inconsistent when it comes to follow-up big moments like this, so we never know what sort of quality follow-up we're going to get. So what would be poor to follow up here? Well, poor follow-up here would be if Shayna is her normal self next week and shows no signs of PTSD from the night she just went through. Shayna shouldn't be calling Lilly a stupid doll anymore, especially after that experience. It's obvious to everyone that everything Shayna went through wasn't a coincidence. That was all Lilly. Now, was Lilly actually in the room with Shayna, or was that all in Shayna's head? You can go back and forth with that, but knowing WWE's usual style with things like this, that was actually Lilly physically being there. So if we see the same old Shayna next week calling Lilly a stupid doll and showing no effects from this closing moment of Raw, that would be a bad look. But the Shayna we should see is maybe more of an in-between Shayna. A Shayna Baszler that still wants to get her hands on Alexa Bliss, but maybe she's a bit spooked as well. What does Alexa and Bray's characters do best? It's mind games. The second you let them in, you basically lost already because they're going to drive you insane and break you down from within. So telling by this moment here from Raw, Alexa Bliss and Lilly are officially in Shayna's head. Now, we'll just have to see what mind games do Alexa and Lilly have in store for Shayna because they got her hooked. Would it have been nice to see maybe a quick flash and glimpse of Alexa in her Lilly outfit, maybe in the mirror or something like that? Yeah, it would have been interesting. Definitely would have added a bit more substance to that closing moment and show that Alexa was really in her head. But it appears that they're holding the Lilly reveal for a big moment. Like we discussed last week, there was just no way that they would give away the big Lilly reveal on a random episode of Raw. Even if it was the main event segment, there was just no way you give that away on free television. So it appears that Lilly reveal has been moved to Hell in a Cell maybe. Maybe the match is announced as Alexa vs. Shayna or Lilly vs. Shayna, but there should definitely be a bigger reveal at Hell in a Cell. A lot of fans are still split on who and what Lilly could actually be. Is Lilly Alexa's alter ego? Will Lilly be played by a new NXT call-up? Will Lilly enter Shayna Baszler and take over Shayna? There's just so many possibilities. We just have to hope that WWE decides on the right one that makes sense and redeems the story from those questionable moments. There's a lot of fans that are all out on this storyline, so you have to go with something that will at least pull some of those fans back, even if it is just a little bit. Just anything to make them respect this story again. But we should be seeing Alexa vs. Shayna for sure in these coming weeks, and the big Lilly reveal isn't that far behind. How are you enjoying this storyline so far? Leave your comments, don't forget to subscribe, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.